What's up guys, Retro Gaming Guy here. Today in this video we're going to jump in here and test out the M18 handheld video game console. We're going to actually unbox this first, take a look at the layout and design of this handheld. We're going to tour through everything that comes on here stock so we know exactly what we're getting ourselves into. We'll also touch on, of course, the specs that are included in this handheld and then test out the performance to see exactly how well it actually handles a bunch of different games and emulators. Let's dive into it and get started. All right, guys, here's our M18 handheld video game console. Let's go ahead and start unboxing this. So while we unbox this, there's a few things that I want to touch on. First and foremost, this uses an RK3566 quad-core CPU, which is actually pretty decent at solving the frame loss issue that we do experience with some of the higher-end games. We also have a 4.3-inch IPS screen over here. So right here, we do have a Type-C to USB-A cable connection. This is going to be great for charging this up and keeping our battery nice and juiced up. We also have a user manual right here. So the back side here is in English. So it walks through pretty much all the different components involved here, how we would, get set up and started on here. So we'll set that aside as well. Now let's take a closer look at the actual handheld. All right, guys, so let's take a closer look at the handheld. So first thing that I notice is this is not one of those tiny, compact, little handhelds from Ambernick. This is definitely a good size handheld right here. Feels really nice in my hands too. My fingers automatically just line up with all the buttons. We also have shoulder and trigger buttons on the back, which we'll get to momentarily. So we have a 4.5-inch IPS screen, which is significantly larger than some of the other handhelds that we're seeing come out to the market these days. This is a 480 by 272 resolution screen. So I definitely want to see how that's going to pan out for us today. Now we also have 4 gigabytes of RAM on here. We have 64 gigabyte storage capacity. So we do have a micro SD card slot down here. And if we eject that, you can see inside here, we have 64 gigabytes. So this is a generic branded card here. It's not, SanDisk or Samsung or anything like that. So take that into consideration. I do recommend always backing these up. Now this actually recesses in very nicely so you don't accidentally disengage this. There we go. You see what a struggle it was for me to actually get that back in. That's a good thing though, because you don't want to run the risk of just bumping into that and popping that out while this is turned on. That's always a terrible thing to do because you likely will corrupt your micro SD card very easily if you eject this while everything's powered on. So 4-button configuration over here, A, B, X, and Y, really prominent colors over here as well. Good response to them, it seems. I mean, we have to jump into games, but definitely seems responsive. Good action on the buttons. We have a start and select right here in the center. We have a home button. We have a plus and minus, which I assume are our volume controls because I'm not seeing anything on the outer frame of the handheld. D-pad over here. Dual analog sticks, which are staggered. Usually we see a lot of handhelds where they are perfectly, leveled off with each other. I do like the way that they are staggered here because that's how the majority of controllers are these days, or at least Xbox controllers. You always have that sort of stagger to them, which just for me, feels really nice to have, that difference where they aren't perfectly level with each other. D-pad seems to be pretty responsive as well. The D-pad doesn't seem like it's super high quality. It does seem like it's, cheaper plastic, as are the start, select, home, and plus and minus. The A, B, X, and Y definitely seem like they are higher quality. Now, if we go to the outer edge, you notice that there are no buttons or ports there. All of our ports are located down here at the bottom, which I think makes total sense because they're out of the way that way. So again, we have the micro SD card slot over here, headphone jack right here, DC, power supply port right there. And then we have the little switch right here to actually power this on. So you'll go ahead and flip it over here to the right if you're looking at it head on, and that will power it right up. So this appears to be our speaker right here in the front. I definitely like the way that that's pointing towards us. You wouldn't believe how many handhelds have the speakers on the back side, which never made any sense to me. Now we also have shoulder and trigger buttons located on the back. And I love the angle of these because when I hold on to this, you notice how my fingers line up perfectly with those trigger buttons. So the L2 and R2 right there. Another really awesome thing about this is usually what we have to do is when we hit our shoulder or trigger buttons, if we're hitting our trigger buttons like this, and we want to move to our shoulder buttons, we have to physically move our fingers. That makes sense, right? Not with this handheld though. Take a look at this. We're hitting the triggers. I'm just alternating back and forth for demonstration purposes. If I want to hit my shoulder buttons now, I can just pull my fingers in and I'm hitting them very nicely right here. It feels very comfortable to do that. I don't have to physically pull my fingers out and make that manual adjustment. I can literally just hit trigger, shoulder, trigger, shoulder without making any massive adjustment. And I really love that. That's something I haven't seen on any other handhelds until this one right here. We also have these ridges right here. We'll call them buttons. This is the first handheld that I have seen that has a keister to it. And it's really comfortable to hold on to. Really stable. It gives you something significant to hold on to here. It feels very secure in my hands, as opposed to a lot of the handhelds that just offer those non-skid sort of strips there, or sometimes you'll see ridges back here. Those are good too. It does give you some stability, but these give you a lot of stability. Look how pronounced those are back here. Definitely gives you a lot to grab onto. So definitely like the way that this is looking so far, but we got to power this on and see what it's all about. So I'm going to go ahead and flip that switch and boot this up. All right, guys, so here we are booted up in here, and we are using MU-ELEC for this. So I love right off the bat the way that this looks, and I haven't even moved left or right yet. I'm just hovering on PSP. That's where I landed here, but we're going to go to the left because I see the all games list over here. And notice how everything kind of jumps around in the background. When we first get to it, it gives us all games, and then it adds a bunch of characters there. So it looks really nicely laid out. So let's jump into all games list, and right over here, it says that there are 20,001 games total on here. So let's jump in here, and it looks like A is going to be the button to jump in. And you can see we have a game list on the right-hand side. It's a text list. Now, one thing I'm going to be critical of right out of the gate is the fact that we are not seeing this in alphabetical order. Anybody that's seen my reviews knows that's something that I look forward to, just because it makes it so much easier to actually navigate. Now, we do have a screenshot from each of the titles so far. And it also looks like, not all of them, but some of them actually have logos over there somewhere built into it. But some of them, you know, where's that one that just said Super? Like this is Super Street Fighter 2. That's not a great, you know, photo of the actual game there. It just literally says Super there. Whereas something like this, it gives us the logo and also a screenshot. So, you know, some of these aren't put together as nicely as others, but all in all, it does, it does look fairly decent. So this one right here, I'm excited about. Love WWF WrestleFest, probably one of my top 5 classic arcade games. But if I was coming in here specifically looking for that, how would I be able to find that other than just stumbling across it like I did? Because we're not in alphabetical order here. Let me see if there's a jump to menu here. There doesn't seem to be. Oh, right there. It says search, hit Y. Okay. So let's say I wanted to look for, let's see, what's a good one to search for? Let's go into Donkey Kong. So we'll type in DONKEY. And let's just search off of that. So how do I hit search? Okay, we'll go over here to the little check mark over here. We'll hit that. And it does pull up all of our Donkey Kong games. So at least we do have the search function on here, and it does seem to work pretty well. So it looks like not all games, and these could be hacks, I'm not sure. Not all games have the box art, but some of them do. And the ones that do look very nicely put together here. So at least, yeah, I mean, again, at least the search function does appear to be working here. It does look like we have a lot of duplicates, though. I'm not crazy about having, you know, 5 of every title. Not that we have one of every single title here, but we do have a lot of Donkey Kong games here, and there are a lot, you know, multiples of the same one. So, all right, we're going to back out. So we're going to go over to, let's check out favorites, 0 games and favorites, which is a good thing. You want to be able to put that together yourself. You don't want to have to deal with somebody else's favorites. And it's very easy to actually add games over to your favorites collection just for easy access. We'll keep moving, though. We have PSP over here, 151 PSP games. All right, let's take a look at this because I want to see if it's true PSP or if it is PSP minis. And just looking at the game list here, it does look like they are true PSP titles. So we have Tekken 5, Dark Resurrection, Metal Slug XX. Let's see, what else do we have here? So we do have some minis games in here as well. But we do have, you know, some full-scale PSP titles too. Does look like there are a lot of minis. We have some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in here. Grand Theft Auto, should be Vice City Stories. Yeah, perfect. Dynasty Warriors, Dragon Ball Z. We have, let's see, what else do we have here? Definitely a lot of PSP Minis games. So we have both collections into one. I would prefer them to be separated, but I'm getting super picky. All right, so not too many full-scale PSP titles from what I'm seeing here. And I will say, I was being critical of this for not having alphabetical order in the all games list, which I would love to have, but this collection actually is in alphabetical order. We do have God of War. I believe that's Chains of Olympus. Not sure that it just says God of War 2, but I believe that's actually Chains of Olympus for PSP. All right, cool. So we'll back out of this. So B is your back button. Next collection is arcade. 603 arcade games here. And again, you can see we start up here with King of Fighters 97. It's not even written out. It's just K of KOF 97. So it is abbreviated, but I guess that could be a problem if you were searching it out, because most people would probably spell it out. That's what I would do anyways. So yeah, this collection definitely isn't in alphabetical order, but we should be able to still go in here and search things out. So if we just did like WWF, say we're coming in here looking for WrestleFest, which we know is in here. There we go, pulls right up. So, all right, I'm okay with that then. We have Final Burn over here with 19 games. And these actually are in alphabetical order. They are abbreviated, though. That's actually the file names that you're seeing here rather than the full title for each game. But since it's a smaller collection, it's not too bad to actually navigate. So that was 19 over there. We have 13 in MAME. Now, a lot of these, and these are also, some of them are abbreviated, but these are not in alphabetical order. So kind of all over the place in terms of the layout, but you know, at least we can search them out with the search function. All right. So a lot of these, I mean, the majority is obviously going to fall in arcade. We do have the 19 over here, and then the 13 over here in MAME. The next one over here is Atari 2600, followed by 5200, followed by 7800. So the 2600 has 559 games, 5200 has 65 games, 7800 has 81 games. We have Atari Lynx over here with 102 games. And we have Capcom System 1 with 20 games, Capcom System 2 with 20 games, and Capcom System 3 with 494 games. That's not correct. Let's see what that's all about. So there's definitely a lot of games in here that aren't actually Capcom titles. So that is a mistake on their part there, but it is what it is. At least we have access to those games. Here we have PC Engine with 290 games. We'll take a look inside PC Engine. And this one is also in alphabetical order, so that's good. And I also like the layout here. So we have cover art, screenshot, logo, and then down here it obviously shows the logo for the entire collection. So definitely like the way that's laid out. We can just kind of scroll through here and see how everything does look the same. We can use the analog stick as well as the left analog stick as well as the D-pad to jump through everything. I accidentally launched that game, but we hit start and select together, and we just drop down to quit game, hit A, and it brings us right back to that menu. So we'll back out again. Next collection over is going to be our Super Nintendo with 4,018 games. That's absolutely massive for NES. Let's take a look. So we do get, looks like some of them are going to be laid out like the previous one, where right here you can see we have the box art, screenshot, logo, and then the next one down is just what looks like a random screenshot. Now these are duplicates, I will say that. You can see right there. So we do appear to have quite a few duplicates in this collection. Not every collection has duplicates, but this one seems to be pretty significant with duplicates. You can see not all of those are duplicates. Some of those are different parts, but you can see literally every single title has more than one. Again, not every one of those is an actual duplicate, but several are. Like here, Alien 3, for example, European version and US version. Some people like having both of those. I particularly would, I would prefer to just have one version, but that's just me. So, not everybody's going to line up 100% on that, but let's back out. So you can see why that is 4,018 games. There's just appears to be a lot of duplicates in there. So over here we have NES hacks. So some of you may have been thinking, all right, well, maybe there's hacks built into that one. No, hacks are a separate collection here with another 1,703 titles. So if we go in here, you can see we have all of our hacks located in here. Now, these are not in alphabetical order. So very random as to what is alphabetical order and what isn't. But it is cool to see that there is scraped data for each of these hacks as well. So it's not just a text list, which we do sometimes see for hack collections like this. All right, we'll back out. Next one over is original Game Boy with 1,072 games on here. Take a look at that one. And we definitely are going to have some duplicates in here. I know that just based off of the game count here. We have too many games for original Game Boy, for there to not be duplicates. So over here we have Super Nintendo, or, well, this one is Super Famicom, but Super Nintendo is the next one over. We should have a lot of crossover between these. Jump in here and take a look. So definitely a lot of duplicates here as well, which makes sense for that game count, which is 3,414. Super Nintendo over here with 999. And this one is in alphabetical order, but there are what appears to be some duplicates here as well. So between these two collections, I mean, you will have a lot of crossover, but if there's duplicates in each one, it definitely, pads the numbers quite a bit here. Next collection is N64, 51 N64 games. So I'm really excited to see how these are going to perform on here. This is in alphabetical order here as well. And we have one of my favorite games, Cruisin' USA, which is actually not the easiest game to emulate. So I definitely want to check that out. It is easier than Cruisin' World. Actually, no, I'm wrong. Cruisin' USA, I believe, is actually the harder one. So that'll be a good test. We'll definitely jump in here at the tail end of this video and test that out. I did see Mario Kart Racing. It doesn't look like a complete collection of all your favorite titles for like the Mario games, but that could be based on, they're putting in here what actually performs well rather than, just adding what everybody wants, but maybe it doesn't work as well as one would want on the setup. So that's pretty cool. And I did see a WWF game down here. Which one was that? Because I am definitely a classic WWF fan. So this is World Wrestling Fever Wrestling 2000 US version. That's probably the Asian version of, I would imagine, WrestleMania 2000, just going off of the 2000 there. Even though it says US version, the title might be like the foreign release version. We do see that with emulation sometimes. Moving on, we have Game Boy Color over here, 548 games. That seems to be pretty on point with the proper number for that collection. Maybe not exact, but it's in the ballpark at least. It's not, padded by several thousand. So that's pretty refreshing to see. All right, we'll back out. Game Boy Advance over here with 1,081. That is a good count as well. So no padding going on over here. No duplicates, I would imagine. Backing out, we have Sega Genesis, 884 games. And I'm liking the layout of these last couple collections here. Alphabetical order, and the game counts line up with what they should be. Game Gear over here with 263 games. Same can be said over here. Not seeing any duplicates. Sega Mega Drive over here. And I didn't get the game count on that one. Let's go back. 3,402. Okay, that's quite a bit. Neo Geo Pocket, 81 games. Next is original PlayStation, and this is going to be our last collection because we're getting back to all games where we actually kicked everything off. So for PlayStation 1, 68 games. Let's take a peek in here. And this one is not in alphabetical order. Now you can see we go from M to R to S, and it starts to look good. Then we go to L, and then we go to M again. We go to H, we go to T. And they are making minor changes to some of the titles. Like I saw up here, WWE SmackDown 2. you know, it was WWF. So if you were to come in here and you searched for WWF, you may not find what you're looking for because, you know, they have changed it from its original title a little bit. Same could be said when we see abbreviations and stuff like that, but it seems like a pretty solid collection here for PlayStation. All right, so far, yeah, there's some shortcomings. There's some issues here in terms of layout and, you know, how everything navigates, but all in all, I mean, it seems like a solid collection, you know, as a whole. So I definitely want to jump in here and test out a handful of games from a handful of different collections to see what the performance is like. Let's dive into that. All right, guys, we just jumped into the M18 handheld video game console. And first and foremost, I want to talk about the layout and design of this. I absolutely love it. I love the feel to this. I love the stability to holding this in your hands. It's just super comfortable from top to bottom. I love the fact that we have those buns, if you will, on the back. Nice ridges that actually, you know, stabilize your experience quite a bit. Very easy to hold on to this. I also love the shoulder and trigger buttons and how they are laid out back here, where you don't have to awkwardly readjust your grip to hit your shoulder buttons as opposed to your trigger buttons, which is where I find I line up, you know, automatically as soon as I grab onto this. So I can just hit on the outside edge of my, or the inside edge rather, of my fingers to hit the shoulders. And then without even readjusting, I can hit the triggers with my fingertips. So I love that. Oftentimes, I don't have that experience with handhelds. I always have to kind of awkwardly pull my fingers out like this. And if you're in a game where you're using shoulders and trigger buttons, then it's a really awkward experience. Not the case here. The 4.5-inch IPS screen, really great resolution on here. It just looks great for, you know, the fact that we're playing retro games. You know, if we were playing like more modern day stuff on here, then it probably wouldn't look as good. But we're playing retro stuff and it looks phenomenal on this much larger screen than what we typically get with, you know, like an Anbernic handheld, for example. So the buttons on here also very responsive, very reliable. I didn't have any binds or, you know, sticky buttons or anything like that. The analog sticks on here, they're definitely budget friendly. Obviously, they're not the highest quality, but they do a great job getting you through the games. It takes a little adjusting on racing games. That's where I noticed the biggest issues. But I got used to it pretty quickly, and in the end, I did have a good experience. Just was a little adjustment from, you know, what my muscle memory might be playing racing games on any type of controller. So once you get used to it, it is a good experience. D-pad on here, very reliable. I also like where start and select are on here. It's a minor thing. It's not a big deal. You're not hitting those all the time, but really nice layout where you just would bring your fingers in or your thumbs in from the buttons and analog sticks where I think they naturally sit, and just slide them in, hit your start and select very easily. Also have the volume control located in the middle here, which is different than most handhelds. Usually they're on the sides. The struggle that I've had with the side location is that oftentimes when you're going over here for your shoulder and trigger buttons, you could easily hit your volume down. That's usually where I go wrong. I hit the volume down with the inside of my finger, and then I end up just kind of bringing the volume down while I'm in the middle of the game. It's just, you know, not a great location. So being that it's in the center, there's really no risk of accidentally lowering your volume or anything like that. Same could be said with the port options down here. Everything is out of the way. There's no risk of, you know, dislodging your micro SD card or anything like that. So definitely cool there. Now, also, I want to make mention of the micro SD card because it's a generic micro SD card. It's not Samsung or SanDisk, which are the most reliable micro SD cards. So if you want to make sure that, you know, you aren't going to have a issue where you lose everything at some point in time, because corruptions on micro SD cards, you know, are definitely an issue, I would recommend backing up the micro SD cards. Very easy to do that. You can do that and then just have a spare copy in case you ever have an issue where this corrupts. You just grab your backup copy, or even if you just back it up to your PC, you could reflash it over to a micro SD card. It's always the best way to go with handhelds that are, you know, set up on generic cards, because you never know when they're going to crap out on you. So just, you know, a way to kind of safeguard your setup. Now, let's talk about the layout of everything included on the card here. And I want to mention this. They're not advertising anything that's included on here. So as far as I'm concerned, having access to the emulators and games and everything being plug and play, ready to go, is a bonus. So I'm not going to critique it at the same level I would as if it was a game drive or a card that was being marketed specifically to put into a handheld. All this stuff is a bonus. So the fact that not everything is in alphabetical order, or some of the collections are kind of messy and thrown together, you know, it's inconvenient, yes, but it's not a deal breaker for this setup here. So there are collections where the wrong games are in the wrong collections, and I didn't mention that so much in the tour portion of this video, but when I went into the Capcom collections to test out games, I found that some of those don't even have Capcom games in there. Basically, Capcom System 1, 2, and 3 are just an extension of arcade. So it's just games that are kind of thrown in there. Luckily, the Capcom games are present. Some are, you know, thrown into those collections, but the majority of them are actually in the arcade collection. So just something you have to take into consideration when navigating through everything and trying to locate things. I would recommend just using the all games list and then just going in for a search. If you can't find what you're looking for, it may be abbreviated. We saw that with like King of Fighters and some of the other titles there, where they just abbreviated them, or they actually used the file name, which is essentially just an abbreviation of the full title. So just things to consider when trying to navigate this. You know, minor inconveniences at the end of the day. There are a lot of duplicates in certain collections. Some of the collections are really nicely put together, like Genesis, for example, Game Gear, stuff like that. It's very easy to navigate. PlayStation was one as well that was pretty easy to navigate, and 64. But unfortunately, not every collection is set up in that exact same way. Now, another thing I want to talk about, obviously, is performance. Had a great experience gaming on here. The majority of the games and game collections work extremely well, even PSP. However, N64 is not a good experience. There's no way to beat around the bush there. There's no way to phrase it differently. it's just not a good experience. The majority of the games are really laggy to the point where you're playing in slow motion. It's not enjoyable at all. Mario Kart 64 was probably the best experience out of the handful of games that I tested, but it's still not perfect. It's playable, I suppose, but it's still very laggy. It's just not totally slow motion like WWF WrestleMania 2000, for example, where literally everything is just down to a crawl. So take that into consideration. Don't get this handheld if you're looking for N64. You know, if you get it and you want to get into PS1, you want to get into PSP, or what's offered for PSP anyways, and you want to get into those retro collections that do run perfectly, and you get lucky with a certain title for N64 that's playable, then that's cool. But don't get it specifically because you want to enjoy Mario Kart on this setup. It would be great if it worked perfect. Unfortunately, it doesn't. But all in all, this was a pretty good experience here. I definitely like, again, the layout and design of this. I wish it had a little bit more power. I wish it was able to effectively emulate N64 flawlessly, of course, but for what it does handle, it is a solid option. So if it lines up with the game collections that you want to enjoy, this is a home run. And it's actually selling currently, and I always say at the time of this video, the price point, because prices do fluctuate quite a bit, but at the time of this video, it's selling for $95, which I think for what we have here is a fair price. Yes, you can probably get something that is going to have better performance than this at slightly less than $95, but for the larger screen here and the layout and design, I think it is a good option. Again, just make sure that it lines up with the games and game collections you want to enjoy. If it does, you're going to absolutely love this. So I'm going to put a link up here at the top of your screen as well as in the description of this video. Click over, get some additional information on what this handheld is selling for currently, you know, and all the offerings involved there. But if you enjoyed the content today, give me a thumbs up on the video. It's a huge help to me here on YouTube. And of course, hit subscribe to stay in the loop for all future videos. And be sure to let me know in the comments what you think of this handheld game console. Thank you guys so much for your time. Thanks for supporting the channel. I'll see you guys on the next video.